Hi, I'm the Sad Panda, and this is another episode in my series, I Read This Should You, a series where I give a review on a book, a novel, or a manga that I've read, and you decide whether or not to read it. Of course, I only touch on the first 100 chapters so as to not spoil everything, and we're going to get right into it this time. This is another reincarnation story called I Got Reincarnated as a Stick, and this story is not high on my list of reincarnation stories. Not because it's bad, it just didn't hold my attention. So we'll get into that in a moment. First, I want to talk about what it's about a little bit and the characters a little bit. So the story opens and we see a goddess, right? Her name is Kuruhana, and she is like a greater goddess of reincarnation, right? And she is a very high-level goddess, but obviously not the highest that there is, not the highest level that she is. And she is visited by another goddess named Lumina, something like that. And they get into a discussion about like battles of the gods or something like that, and finding like their magnum opus, like to use as a weapon or whatever. So after this conversation is over, we meet our main character, who is coincidentally struck by lightning, and it's not a coincidence, it's the goddess is doing, and we learn that within the first 100 chapters. She directly smote him with a lightning bolt that's like 20 times the size of a regular lightning bolt, and it just incinerates the house that he's in and him, so he's just dead. And in doing so, she offers him two choices: to be reincarnated in the 6 paths, which gives him a 1 in 6 chance of being reincarnated as like a human, a plant, an animal, like a spirit of some sort, and some other things. And the second option is to be reincarnated in the game that he liked, called ISE, or Infinite Stick Evolution. And I thought the premise was very interesting. The idea of evolution, but not as an animal, but as like just a stick. And I thought the premise would be interesting. And of course, our main character, Aris, he made the astute discovery. He's like, okay, well, if I do the second option, what is in it for me? Because there has to be a reason, right? And she's like, yeah, you're pretty smart. And she just gives him a couple extra like abilities, like the ability to live his life as a game and the ability to cut his XP needed to level in half, which is very strong and very strong buff. So he decides that that is the correct choice, and he goes into Infinite Stick Evolution, or ISE. Aris obviously playing this game for a majority of his life when he was a human. He knows a lot about it, so he knows all the special tips and tricks, and the whole idea of the story is interesting to me. The idea that a stick can fight other sticks for XP is the funniest thing, and that you can gain humanity. That's something that you can do. You can, like, after you level up to a certain point, you can gain like a portion of humanity, and eventually you can like evolve into a human. So that's like the goal of the sticks, is to gain enough intelligence to evolve into a human. Now, Oris obviously knows a lot about the game, so as he like gets revived and spawns into the world, he knows exactly where he is and where he needs to go to get the fastest levels. If you've played an RPG at all, like I used to play Diablo a lot, you know the most efficient ways to level if you played the game a lot. So he knows the most efficient way to level, and so he goes out of his way to like skip the starting area and go somewhere else, because when you go into the starting area, you beat a bunch of sticks, you have to fight a boss, and the boss is actually way higher level than you would expect. So what he does is he goes to an area specifically for leveling, like with the wind affinity, because if he's a stick and he gets the wind affinity, he can move faster, which is a big thing for sticks because they can't necessarily move all that much. They can roll. That's like his first skill that he has, is the roll. Some of the other skills that he gets are really interesting as well. He gets like the ability to like fire like magic, like acorns, essentially. He uses magic to fire acorns that he can grow. It's like ammunition or whatever, and it does damage. It's one of those things. But the reason why I thought this story was going to be very good is the idea that we find this out in the first 100 chapters, so I'm not spoiling anything. Aris is chosen, but not for his like skill in the game or anything special about him. It's because Kunohana, she wants a weapon to fight the gods, and the best way to do that is to get sentient material, right? And so the best thing that she can do is wait for him to level and become strong enough to the point like right before he evolves, to take him and craft him into like a sword or a staff or something, because the more powerful the spirit of the material, the more powerful the weapon, right? And of course, she doesn't tell him this, obviously, and there's like a bunch of caveats where he can unlock like certain parts of the system because they're locked by using like special points that he gets, and it's this whole thing. And I like the character Aras. I think he's very interesting. I think that he knows. I like that he knows about the system, right? He knows the. I like the idea of being put into a game that you know, because if you're put into a game that you know all of like the secret spots, you know all of the leveling spots, you know where the bosses are, you know the boss's weaknesses already. And it's one of those things where even though he's weaker, like it gets to the point where he goes to like a mountain where the wind affinity is trained, and he meets a bunch of other sticks that are very high level, right? Like sticks and trees, because in this world you can evolve into different kinds of like trees and like sticks. You can become like one is called like a Spartus, and it's like it's a stick, but it can like it's very good at using magic, and that's the whole thing. And you can become like a treant. It's like you're just like the tank of the game. Like that's the idea. You can it's just a video game. You can be like the mage, you can be like the tank, like that kind of thing. He gets to the point where even though he's much weaker than these other sticks, since he knows how to manipulate his body better and what like abilities to level, he is able to contend with these high-powered sticks. And in doing so, he meets another reincarnator. I forget what her name is, but she is very high level. She's like to the point where she can evolve to become a human. But she doesn't want to do that. It's this whole thing where she feels like she's been abandoned by her goddess or her god or whoever reincarnated her, because it's not the same person. Because in this world, all the gods kind of battle for like supremacy, and they all have like their own personal like worlds that they will create like sentient material to create weapons to fight. So this planet is Kuru Hana's like specific, like she made it just to farm materials. So all these people that have been reincarnated, I don't know if there's a lot more or if it's just these two, right? But all the people there are just used by the gods, which if you know anything about like mythology at all, that's not an uncommon thing, right? Where the gods don't really care about humans and all that shit. They need certain things from people, and that's what they do. And after meeting her, they have this like discussion, and his goal is to like evolve, and it's this whole thing. And I thought the story was going to go somewhere. I mean, it's not like it didn't go anywhere, right? I just thought it would be more, I guess. It just starts really slow, right? And I've been one to say that if a story doesn't catch me, it hold my attention, I can't really read it, right? And this story I read up to like 93 or 94 chapters, and the coins that it cost versus my enjoyment of the story just didn't add up, right? So this is going to be a shorter video because I don't have a whole lot to say about this. I mean, it's not bad, right? It just didn't hold my attention, and I thought that my coins would be better spent elsewhere, right? Like in Cultivation Big Shot or any of those other stories that I read regularly, right? So I would give this probably like a 5. It's maybe like a 5.5, but not really anything else. And I understand that this video is kind of short, but I don't have a whole lot to say about this story. I thought I would have more to say about it, but now that I'm like looking back on the story, it just seems kind of like meh. I mean, if you've read cultivation stories, or transmigration stories, sorry, you would know like a lot about what's like gonna happen, right? He starts really weak, he levels, and bam, he's super strong for no reason, and then he has to fight like random people. Like there's in this story there's a bunch of humans that also know about him, and they want to kill him before he can like gain even more sentience. They want to use his body as well. So it's not only is the goddess waiting till he gets strong enough to take his body and just use it as like a weapon. There's just regular humans as well that just take his body and like want to take his body and use it as a weapon, because like in this particular like planet, like sentient sticks and stuff are very like, they're very common, but ones that get very strong are not very common, right? And since he got strong super fast and no one like knows until the point where he can kind of fight, like it's just, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, he gets really lucky that he wasn't found sooner, right? Because when you read it, you realize that these people are like generally always looking for like sentient like sticks and like, I don't know if there's sentient rocks or whatever, but like sentient material, right, to craft weapons. And because like the more powerful and more magic that a stick has, the more powerful and magic the weapon that is created from it will be. And it's just a lucky situation where he's like, oh, well, I'm lucky that I didn't get captured way earlier when I couldn't fight anybody, where I could barely talk, because that's something that is a thing with the sentient sticks. They can only talk after they gain a certain amount of humanity or sentience or whatever it's called. I don't remember exactly what the calculation's called. It gives it like a percentile, but it's like humanity or sentience. I don't really know. But it's just one of those things. The story isn't bad. I don't think it's bad at all. I just think it didn't hold my attention long enough for me to read it. I mean, a lot of these other stories that I've read all the way through, because even though it's not the best story in the world, it can at least hold my attention. But this story, it's just the coins versus the enjoyment. It just wasn't there. And if you decide to read this, give it a shot, right? I'm not telling you not to read it. I won't tell that about any book that I've read, because your taste might be different than mine. I just think it wasn't for me. And if you like my content, of course, leave a like and subscribe, leave a comment. I always respond to them. And if you don't like my comment, leave a dislike, leave a comment. Tell me what I'm doing wrong and I can do better. That's just my goal here. I just want to make content that people enjoy. And I enjoy making it, so, it's a win-win for both of us. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And yeah, that's about it.